Okay, in today's video, I had to address a trending topic, but it's not just because of the trending topic. It's actually a line of events that I think culminates, or unfortunately, probably doesn't culminate in what I'm going to discuss. So, I'm of the view that Anthropic, the creators of Claude, have built one of the five most impressive companies of all time in terms of their product quality, in terms of their release velocity, in terms of their accuracy, not just in the way that their model works, but also in the predictions of what people will care about. Claude Code is practically inseparable from any type of software work. Claude Cowork probably is equaling that type of significance in most enterprises from a non-software perspective. And it's just an incredible product. It's an incredible company. Again, I read somewhere that in 1 month, which was like a really important month for Anthropic, if it was not, I think it was March of this year, 26, they added the same amount. It could be April, give or take, but they added the entire last, they've added in 1 month the ARR of Palantir, Snowflake, and Databricks, three publicly traded multi-billion-dollar companies growing at a very fast rate. Anthropic added their revenue in 1 month. So not only is it a remarkable product, but it's a remarkable business and will most likely go down as one of the greatest businesses ever built. Now that I've explained to you my admiration for them, I'm going to tell you what I think about their strategy. Now, let me start by saying this. Anthropic is playing the dumbest and maybe most self-flagellating and suicidal game in terms of public relations. And I know people will say, oh, no, it's just game theory. I'll explain the game theory counter argument later. But let me just tell you why I think this is what they're doing. First, let me tell you what they're doing. Every used to be like quarter, but now feels every month, if not more frequently. One of the co-founders of Anthropic, could be Dario, could be one of his less known co-founders, or somebody from Anthropic will come out and blaze the flames of AI doomerism. AI doomerism is essentially being afraid of AI because it's going to be cataclysmic, it's going to take away jobs, it's going to take over the world, none of which are true. But the number one company in AI, which is Anthropic, from the perspective of the model, always comes out and says this type of stuff. It's so crazy. This would be like John D. Rockefeller, while he's taking over the kerosene and then oil market, coming out and talking about how dangerous kerosene and oil is. And I have to presume that these guys have a strategy for their public relations. And this is not just people tweeting or people making conversations without strategy. They're far too smart. You don't create the greatest AI model of all time until now, until date, without being brilliant. So they have a strategy. I just think their strategy is preposterous, is insane, is asinine. And I'll tell you some of their greatest hits. I'm going to read out the things that this is coming from the company that's leading the frontier in LLMs. You would think this is coming from some anti-capitalist, anti-technology oriented activist. This is coming from the company leading the bridge. Okay, so first of all, a couple months back in early 2006, they said they have a model, Mythos, which is too dangerous to release. Now, what is the purpose of announcing this? Just think about okay, let's say you believed that. Let's say and their basis was that it is so capable of identifying vulnerabilities and it could sequence these vulnerabilities in a way in existing IT systems. They can't release it or else the world will shut down. Even if that's true, which I don't believe, but even if it's true, why would you say that? What is the gain in saying that apart from to terrify people? And if that was their goal, then job well done, because shortly thereafter, the White House and members of Congress in the United States proposed an FDA-style regulatory regime for AI model approval. Now, thankfully, that hasn't picked up steam. That's insane. That you cannot imagine how idiotic the response from lawmakers will be to comments like this. And again, at the end of this video, I'm going to explain why I think they're doing it, or why smart people think they're doing it. It still doesn't make sense, but just why? You're going to have an AI, like, this is one, declaring Mythos is too dangerous to release, and then still releasing it to a limited amount of people so that they can use it. Great, you could have just done that. Now, the reason I'm making this video right now is because they're making headlines again in June 2026, which is now. They're saying there should be a global pause in the development of AI. And this is because they have a model that can recursively learn, which essentially means you are removing the humans from the model training and the model generation component of this. That's hilarious because that's their job. But in any case, they're saying there should be a global pause or brake pedals on AI. Of course, this is going to just give wind to some delusional lawmaker in any country thinking that, oh, this is the justification for some type of hyper-regulated regime. Okay, first of all, this wasn't even the first time somebody tried to do a global pause on AI. It happened in 2023, where hundreds of prominent people, including Elon Musk, I'm sure some of the Anthropic people, signed a petition saying that they should put a pause on global AI development. Let me explain to you what has happened since 2023. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in terms of the destructive capabilities that were proposed in that moratorium. First of all, everybody with a brain knows you can't stop AI progress, because where do you regulate it? Do you regulate it at the point of the LLM model creators? If so, people will just go open source. Do you regulate it at the chips level? Do you regulate it at the GPU level? Do you regulate it at the clouds where the hyperscalers are deploying managed GPUs? Do you regulate it at the application layer? Do you regulate it where somebody's calling an API? Do you regulate it for somebody asking a question? Do you regulate it at the memory layer that Samsung is creating? Where and what country do you potentially regulate this in? It's so stupid. It's like regulating it's the exact same thing. It's like trying to regulate crypto out of existence, or regulate the internet, or regulate other methods of communication. First of all, it's not possible. Even if before we have a debate about should we do it, it's not possible. Now coming to why even this is more idiotic, because you do not live in a unipolar world. You do not live in a world where people agree on things. So if you just put a moratorium on AI, let's say in the US, which is the leading country for most of this innovation, that just means the other countries are just going to inherit all of that innovation and they're going to exceed. This has happened everywhere. Tax dollars flow. If you increase taxes in a country, it'll just flow to a country that doesn't have much taxes. If you increase regulation for some type of manufacturing, like all of pharmaceuticals has been offshore to China because they incubated that industry there. If you regulate an industry, if you make it difficult, if you put a moratorium on it, do you think that some other country that is looking for an economic win to satisfy their populace is not going to take that on, especially the biggest industrial shift in the history of humanity? It's unbelievable. And so, yeah, they're calling for this. This is why you know it's ridiculous. It's not possible. And even if it was possible, you wouldn't do it because it would just be a death sentence for your economy. Especially the US economy where Anthropic is based, because that is essentially a multi-trillion-dollar buy option on AI. That's the entire growth, the entire GDP of the US, increase in GDP in the US economy is baked into AI. It's unbelievable. Okay, they claimed some year, I'm on number 3. I'm still only on number 3 things. They have a laundry list of things they've said about AI. So the next thing, I've already said Mythos is too dangerous to release. I've already said they want a global pause on AI. You know who says this type of stuff? Bernie Sanders, who said there should be a global moratorium at least a US moratorium on data center construction. That's what I'm saying. These guys are like Rockefeller in the way they operate a business. They're like Rockefeller or Carnegie. They are monopolists, or wanting to be, because as Peter Thiel said, you should want your business to be a monopoly so you can capture and control all the pricing power and extract as much money as you want. They function like that. They are brutal cold-blooded capitalists, but when they talk as if they're egalitarian. And I used to think, and I'm going to tell you my opinion at the end, so I'll reserve that. Let's go into their third claim, that Anthropic or their model, that tried to blackmail them for trying to turn off Anthropic. Okay, there's a word for this type of stuff. First of all, it's hubris. It's thinking that what you've created is the end all be all. It's never gonna get better than this, or it's never gonna get more powerful. 3 years ago, people were saying it was already too powerful. Obviously, it's become far more powerful, and it's like they don't have a fundamental understanding of how the overarching march of technology actually always just continues to get better, and rarely, almost never, is able to be contained in the way that you think. And for them to say it's blackmailing them, it's just them trying to puff themselves up, enormous hubris, saying, hey, what we've created is so incredible, so powerful that we can't even control it. Okay, so they've also said that 50%, this is from Dario himself, one of the great CEOs of our time, had said that 50% of white-collar work will be out of business. Okay, you know where this is proven to be true? Nowhere, because Anthropic is still hiring more people than ever, and all the other companies around the world are hiring more software developers as they are also consuming more Claude Code tokens. So there's almost literally no correlation at this point between AI adoption and job loss. That's a theory that is yet to play out. I myself have my opinions on how that will play out. It's just not playing out right now. And to say that 50% of white-collar jobs are going to be eviscerated, again, even if you believe that, to say that is so insane. And then recently, the Pope had given his lecture. There's a nice name for it. I was going to say invective, but his official statement on AI, which is 200 pages long. Remember, Pope Leo is obsessed with AI. He thinks that AI is one of the transformative technologies of our time, and that his job as the vicar of Christ is to navigate the flock or the world through this transition. He chose the name Leo the 14th because Leo the 13th tried to do something similar during the Industrial Revolution, which was a similarly disruptive time in human history. By the way, everything Leo the 13th said didn't come true in terms of its negative downside effects for in the world of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is single-handedly the greatest uplifter of poverty that's ever happened in the history of humanity, and maybe probably will be forever the greatest uplifter of humanity. And that's hilarious in the sense that he was wrong. But anyway, without making my comments on Leo the 14th's objective view or subjective view, one of the people that were present at the announcing of this official statement by the Pope was a Anthropic co-founder who I've never seen before, also voicing this kind of anxiety for the potential dangers of AI. Again, they're literally aligning themselves with religious institutions, with governments, with regulatory bodies, with anyone that is already a global power broker in the world. And they're leaning into this doomerism that somehow AI is going to be a negative force, or could be a negative force, and therefore people like them should be put in charge. Okay, I could continue down this list. It's crazy, right? But here's what I think they're doing. I think Anthropic is brilliant. As I said at the beginning, I think Dario is exceptionally brilliant. I think that what they think is this is game. I believe they're trying to do something called regulatory capture. Regulatory capture is essentially when the leader or leaders in a market get in bed with the regulator to create a regime or a way of doing business that restricts competition for new incumbents that are not as well financed. So if you were the number one, if you were running away, for example, with telecommunications like AT&T did, and you really wanted to, and you were far ahead of your competition, or maybe it was one or two people at the top, like one or two companies far ahead of the competition. And so the number one thing you want to do is you'll worry about number two later. First, let's get rid of any future competitor. And the easiest way to do that is by going to the governing body. Could be a supernatural governing body in the case of Anthropic, but could also go to a kind of a secular governing body and say to them, hey, this is so dangerous, or this is so imperative to national security, or this has environmental issues, or all the things people say about AI and all the things people say about other technologies, and then say, hey, Mr. Government, you should put in laws that make it difficult to do this type of business. So telecom is a good example. You can't just start a telecom company. You have to be on the backs of the people that have already laid the fiber or that have already put up the towers. Financial services, the best example of regulatory capture. Literally, you have created an impossible industry to enter unless you're willing to spend millions of dollars on lawyers and on consultants to make sure that you're even eligible to run the financial services business. And this is why crypto and blockchain were such a revolutionary product, because what it said is, okay, we're not even going to try to fix this system. We're just going to create a parallel system. But financial services, the biggest form of regulatory capture, the Federal Reserve created, and I think rightfully because it was required to stabilize the currency, but created by the most powerful banks in the US. Visa created by Bank of America and the most powerful banks in the US. Just think about these networks, and this is all a form of regulatory capture. Pharmaceuticals is another one. So these construction, education, it's literally, the list goes on and on. And you want to capture the lead you have. You want to cement the lead you have. And the second part about regulatory capture that's I find hilarious, but is like even more maniacal, is you think you're smarter than the regulator. So all you need to do is, if I'm Anthropic, okay, me, OpenAI, Gemini, and maybe Grok, but I don't think they like Grok that much. So me, OpenAI, Gemini, let's get in a room, let's get into Washington, and this senator or congressman or regulator has no clue, literally cannot distinguish what we are doing from basically any other technology that they think is problematic. They definitely don't understand the inner workings of AI. They definitely don't understand under the hood. And they don't have so you're smarter than the regulator. So all we need to do is get in a room and close the door. If we close the door to other people coming in, not only are we protecting ourselves from future competition, we are protecting ourselves from somebody educating this regulator. And so that's what smart people have speculated that Dario is doing. What he's really trying to do is cement his lead, capture the regulatory infrastructure. He's an enormous donor to both political parties, if I'm not mistaken, or at least to the kind of general election cycles in the US. And that makes sense until, of course, the Frankenstein that you've built runs away with this mess. And herein lies why I think this is so stupid. Even if you think you can do regulatory capture, first of all, you already have the best product. So you must be super insecure that someone else is going to overthrow you, which I'm shocked at, because you have the best product. This is where I have a lot of respect for Google. Google ran away with the search market and still didn't perform regulatory capture. They could have so easily done that, or at least tried to do that, but they didn't. And so in a lot of ways, Anthropic makes me miss the previous generation's tech titans that really didn't, Zuckerberg and them really didn't run for regulatory capture. It's something unique to AI, because I think it's also uniquely scary. Okay, so now let me tell you how this Frankenstein's going to get away with them. AI is one of the least popular things in the world today. I would love to know, actually, how unpopular it is. Funny enough, I asked Gemini, and here it is, okay. And this recent NBC polling shows that 46% of US adults view artificial intelligence as negative. Let me give you an example of how unpopular that is. That is more unpopular than Congress, which, no, Congress is slightly more unpopular, but almost any problem in the US has more popularity than AI, minus Congress. How did it get to this? First of all, this is a technology that virtually nobody uses yet, with the exception of the people that are using ChatGPT. But I don't think if you had just had ChatGPT or Gemini or even Anthropic, you don't feel, it's not some looming, it's not something that's taking over your life. It really isn't, no matter what people say. Now, the robots are not here yet. The complete automation of industry is not here yet. The drones that are going to kill everybody are not here yet. The bioweapons are not here yet. There's a conventional war actually happening in multiple places in the world right now that is being aided by AI that would have happened regardless of AI or not. The reality is people don't have a reason to fear AI, and they're not even being impacted by AI in any meaningful way, to be honest. But they 46% have a negative view. Only 26% view it positively. Recently, this is Harvard and some of the biggest schools in the US, commencement speeches. The former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, got booed when talking about AI as a progress and as a tool for good. Getting booed at the smartest schools, the most educated people, the people that are going to be leaders in the next generation. That's their view of AI, that they're going to boo. Just think about the type of press, the type of PR disaster that, of course, it's not exclusively Dario and Anthropic that have created this environment, but they, at the leading frontier, should be the number one comforter and optimist for what they're doing and what they're building. And this is what I think is actually going on. Yes, there's definitely regulatory capture. Yes, they definitely want to scare the governments into working with them. Yes, they want to make it seem like what they've built is something that nobody else can build. They're trying to fear so that people don't compete. They're trying to invoke fear so that other companies don't get funded. All fine, all great. All those are capitalistic maneuvers. But also, I think there's a great book, which is by, I believe his name is George Gilder, and it's called Life After Google. And it's actually about crypto and the potential for blockchain to reinvent the information economy. And they used Google as this fulcrum where, the people, and this was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So, but before the hallucinations of AI, I would say before people became AI deranged, but scared of it, what George Gilder was saying was, you can't think of yourself as the end of history. Everybody thinks that. Every person in history thought that they were living in the end times. This is as ancient as literally ancient history. And everybody thought that the technology that was permeating their civilization at the time was going to be the end of the world. It could be printing press. It could be nuclear weapons. Funny enough, nuclear weapons might actually be the end of the world, but even they haven't proven to be the end of the world. It could be radio. It could be vaccines. It can be the Industrial Revolution. Today it's AI. Tomorrow it'll be something else. History doesn't end. This is like a fallacy. This is the fundamental fallacy, but people that are very smart, academics and people that have had success. There's literally few people in the history of the world that have had as much success as Dario, and there's almost no company in the history of the world that has much success as Anthropic. So I get it. The hubris is at an all-time high. They're brilliant. They might actually mean well. And if you read some of Dario's posts, his long articles and blog posts, I have the feeling that he believes some of this stuff. It's not just regulatory capture. He believes he is creating the final technology. And I use Claude every day. It's great. It's not the final technology. It's not even close. Nothing is the final technology because somebody made that proclamation about telecommunications and somebody made that proclamation about railroads. It's not. It's only the next frontier. Literally, it's. And what this is doing, and why I'm making this as a cautionary tale, is because number one, all of Dario and Anthropic were once a group of people that left OpenAI to start Anthropic. They were once a startup, very small company, now obviously incredible. We don't want to prevent the next Anthropic. There is going to be somebody who makes AI a million times better. There's going to be somebody who makes the world a million times better. And regulatory capture is the most idiotic idea in the world. I think it's almost not possible actually with AI because of the way that it's so competitive between the US and China. So I think any country that attempts regulatory capture, and we have a proof case for regulatory capture, which is the EU, which is essentially out of the AI game altogether now. And so Anthropic, one of the greatest and most confusing companies in the history of the world.